Hey, and welcome back to the number one podcast in the world, the Cellarcast, episode 167. Quite a belated episode, I must say. I guess I can explain a bit of the absence. I tried to make a 3-week video in 2 weeks last month, and your guy got a little stressed out and couldn't really focus on anything besides work. So everything else kind of suffered. Literally everything else in my life suffered because of finishing that damn Harvester video. It's honestly my fault. It's honestly my fault. Oh, that actually reminds me of what I was. I completely forgot about that. Of what I was. The reason that my time was so poorly budgeted. Was that I forgot that near the end of October, I had like a bunch of stuff planned, and I ended up losing essentially a week's worth of working. A week's worth of time that I could have spent working. And yeah, lo and behold, that video I think dropped on the 5th. So the numbers basically work out. It is funny how much a week's difference can make. And how clockwork I can get a video out in 3 weeks. Does that make sense? Is that a real sentence? How much like clockwork I can get a video out in 3 weeks? That's a better way to phrase that. Yeah, I did a bunch of stuff near the end of October. Now we're halfway through November, so I guess I can mention the interesting bits. I went to a local anime convention with my girlfriend and one of our friends. It's a convention that we've gone to. We went last year. If you guys remember, I had a whole story about meeting voice actress extraordinaire Faye Mata, who was very nice. And this year, I met another voice actress at the same convention. A featured guest. Her name is Kaylee McKee. I knew her as the voice of Testament, the English voice of Testament in Guilty Gear Strive. What else? Hang on. She's in... I want to get the stuff that she's in right, because there was quite a bit that she's in Jujutsu Kaisen as Utah. That's crazy. That's my favorite state. She's Kiku in One Piece. She plays a bunch of different roles in Fiona and Cake. She's in a lot of stuff now. She's been... Oh, what the heck? Is she in part 6? Oh, okay, that's funny. She's in Stone Ocean as like a side unnamed character. That's funny. She's in a lot of stuff, and she had a great Q&A panel. Probably one of the better Q&A panels I've ever been to. It's funny, as soon as I sat down, I didn't go in with any intentions of asking questions, but the moment I sat down and I saw that, it's a small convention, the room's not like especially packed, that's just how these things kind of go. There's maybe a dozen at most people there. And my interview brain started going, and I was like, hang on, I can come up with some fun questions. So I did ask her about... I asked her what... I was like, hey, so, you're usually working with... you're doing English dubs of existing characters and existing... characters with existing performances, usually from the original Japanese. How much does the original performance influence you, or do you take off from that? And it's funny, she actually said that by the time you get into the booth, first of all, when you do the audition, apparently you rarely have an idea of what the original Japanese was, either because the project hasn't been released yet, so you literally don't know, or that there's some kind of like code name or something like that. And it's less that apparently the way that it works in at least the English dubbing industry is that they bring you in and they don't really like tell you how to act. They hire you based off of what your pitch, your audition. So like if you just happen to audition with the type of performance they're looking for, that is like that's what they're hiring based on. Not, oh, this person's a good actor, maybe I can bring them in and then direct them to act in this specific way. So usually, unless it's like a very long-running role or it's something that's very established, or you get to work on something for multiple seasons where you get to hear the original Japanese, apparently it is mostly the English dub actors kind of, it's their, what's the term? It's of their own volition, kind of how they decide to play the part. So that was kind of interesting. It's sort of obvious once I think about it. That makes a lot of sense, but I don't know. I don't have a peek into this. I also asked her what the biggest disaster project she ever worked on was, not having to name names or anything, but just what was the story, if there is one. And she had like an industry answer and like an indie answer. The indie answer was never work on an abridged project, which I found very funny because, my God, how many abridged anime projects that are trying to do the Team 4-star thing or the Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged thing. How many of those they launch with one episode and they never complete? An abridged series that an abridged series that actually releases all of its episodes is incredible. An abridged series that does that and is actually funny is miraculous. So that was fun. And then apparently some like funny stories about like directors getting into arguments over the phone with like people from other companies while they're in the booth. Just funny industry stuff. I also got her to sign. She was doing signings, so I got a signed little, very high quality, like, I don't know what you'd call it, like a little card. It's like a plastic high quality card of a little chibi testament on it that she signed. So she was very nice, and she was cool. Kaylee McKee. And then, oh God, they had this, I want to talk about this. This is for a very specific audience of people, I guess. There was a fighting game tournament. There was like they had like a gaming room where they had a bunch of consoles and stuff set up. So there were a couple different tournaments for different games, a couple fighting games. And I said, oh, don't mind if I do. There probably won't be very many people who enter. So I entered the Strive tournament, as did my friend, who has never played Strive before. And there was only about 6 people. I think one of the people dropped out. Like, he left to go to the bathroom and never came back. So just the 5 of us, actually. And we played a round-robin tournament. That is a format where everyone plays everyone else. It's a good format for if you've got not a lot of people. And then the winner is decided by who won the most games. So the first match I played, I kind of got the impression that of the 5 of us there, me and one other guy like actually played the game and had experience. Like, the tournament was really a tournament between the 2 of us. I don't say that to be like arrogant. That's just how it was. Like, the other people literally didn't play the game. And funny enough, we were the last match that happened. He and I. So the first person I played, she sat down, and a little before the tournament started so that she could like hook up her controller and everything. And I don't want to be mean about this. I don't want to be mean. This is just the experience as it happened. She sounded kind of like a human Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. She had this like perpetually sad tone to her voice. Like, she would even saying normal things, just, hey, do you guys know how to set the controller up? And I was like, yeah, and I'm trying to be nice, I try to be nice. I try to be nice to strangers. That's what makes me better than everyone else. And I was trying to be friendly and just, I don't know, positive, especially when I found out that she was entering the tournament, because she says like, well, I've only really played Blaze Blue. I've never played Strive. So I'm hoping that I can kind of get a little bit of practice in. And I was like, oh yeah. And I was like helping her out with, she gravitated towards like Testament, and I used to main Testament. So I was like, yeah. So I was explaining a little bit of how the character worked and some of their inputs. And like, yeah, this one's, you have like a reversal super, and this one's the damage super. And, oh, burst. Yeah, it works the same as in Blaze Blue. And she's like, oh, okay. All right. And it turns out that we were first round opponents. She was my first match, and it was a first to three. First to three wins the set. That was the format. And I'm not gonna lie, the first game happened, and I absolutely crushed her. I obliterated her. And I don't feel bad about that because it's a tournament setting. I understand that it's like a tiny little local anime tournament, local anime convention that we're holding a little tournament at with 5 people, but still, it is a tournament, you know? I'm not just gonna not try. Also, there's like a prize. So, I never found out what the prize was because I didn't win, by the way. I got second. I went 3-2 against the other guy, and just barely lost. It was close. It was like a genuinely very fun game, and it made me want to go play games in person more. Shockingly, actually leave my house. But the you know, there's something on the line, and I have some competitive spirit. We're all trying to win here. You're trying to win. I'm not gonna like go easy. Personally, I feel like going easy on someone in a tournament setting, in like a casual setting, sure, you know, I'll play a character I don't know, or I'll kind of like ease up on the gas, you know. I'm not trying to ruin your day. If I'm playing with someone who's not experienced in the game or the genre. But if it's like a tournament, then like, yeah, no, I'm gonna like play. I think that it's a little bit patronizing in a tournament to go easy on someone. I think that's a little patronizing. And personally, if it was me, I wouldn't want someone to go easy on me. I don't think that's fair, because all that's really going to happen, assuming that it's a more competitive tournament, is they're going to go to the next round and someone's going to blow them out. You know, they're not going to get that treatment from everyone. So I blow her out of the water the first game, and she goes, I might switch my character. I think she was playing Testament, and then she was like, she asked if she could change her character, and my first inclination was to go, oh, is that in the rule set? Because in most tournament rule sets, in Smash it's a thing, but in traditional fighters not really. Changing your character is not really like in between, like in the middle of a set is usually not like allowed. You kind of have to stick to the same character. I know in Smash they let you change in between matches, but not traditionally. But I was like, you know what, I'll let her. So it's like she switches to May, and I think I perfected her. And then she switched to Potemkin, and then I think I perfected her again. I'm playing Slayer, man. People are like, oh yeah, but you're playing a top tier. Slayer hasn't been top tier in 20 years. Let me enjoy him. For once. I think he's really fun in Strive. Part of it has to do with the fact that he's so good, but I just genuinely really like him in that game. And then it's a total stomp. I don't think I dropped a single round against her. And afterwards, I was ready to say, you know, you kind of look for the other person's reaction if they lost, you know, because some people take losses harder than other people. And if they take it well, then like all good, and let's you fist bump or something like that. But if they're really taking it badly, just give them a little like, hey, good games. And she goes, oh well, I really wanted to win at least one. And I was like, come on, man, like don't make me feel bad for winning in a tournament for a game that we both entered that you don't even play. Like, you know, she went on and like she won some matches against other people. Like, I don't think she finished last. I think my friend finished last. But it's like don't make me feel bad for that. Don't do that. I would say that that's like a little bit of a bad manners. Don't put that on me for winning. Come on, in a tournament setting. But overall, it was really fun, and I like going to small conventions. You know, I think we went 2 days in a row. That's like a nice sweet spot for me. 1 to 2 days. I can't do anything longer than that. We've only done that one time. Kat and I did that one time when it was very stressful for both of us. We went to like a 3.5 day, 4 day convention. And we were both like, yeah, let's never do that again. So that's why the Harvester video came out late. That's why it wasn't a Halloween. It was supposed to be a Halloween video. And then I was like, well, I guess it's an American Election Day video. Man, I was so relieved. The moment I uploaded the video and got everything done, this like wave of relaxation. I realized I'd been basically tensed up for like 3 or 4 days. And as soon as I uploaded it, I was like, I was soaking in like relaxation for like 2 days straight. That's how long that feeling lasted of like the release of tension. So I'd like to not repeat that again. I'll probably try to get 2 more videos out before the end of the year, if everything goes well. The next one I kind of want to make. I want to make a fun, light video, you know, something that's not so damn serious. So, okay, here's my goal. I want to make a video where I don't reference a scientific paper. Where I don't feel the need to reference a scientific paper. That's been like the last 4 videos. And hopefully something under an hour, although I don't trust myself. Anyway, as I'm recording this, yesterday was our 4-year anniversary, or my 4-year anniversary of being on YouTube. The very first actual video I uploaded. To go over my history again. I started the Cellar YouTube channel as at first I did live streams for about a month in October of 2020. And then the first actual episode of the Cellar, the first video I made, was November 17th, 2020. So the 17th marks my 4-year anniversary. And what a 4 years it has been. It is also, weirdly enough, by complete coincidence, my mom's birthday. That just happened to be the day that I uploaded. And we were planning on going to a dinner, but something happened last minute and we had to reschedule. So I figured, you know what? I can do a stream. I like doing streams on my anniversary. So I did a stream, and I'm going to have to vent about this. You're going to have to hear me complain about YouTube. YouTuber complains about YouTube. How many times have you heard this before? But really, it's like, where else do I go? What else do I do besides shout into the void about how fucking asinine this platform is? I'm sorry to say that yesterday, that stream was probably the most heated I've ever gotten on camera. Like, genuinely. And I don't really feel bad for it, because I think I was justified, and I think people kind of understood why I was so mad. You know, there's me being mad where I'm just like, I don't know. Maybe I've gotten a little... it's always like a prepared, I'm going to talk about this, and I'll get maybe emotional, because I care about a certain topic on this podcast, or in a video. But in the video, it's like, you know, I am reenacting the frustration I feel when playing a game or something like that, right? That's the purpose of what I'm presenting there. Yeah, I got legitimately really angry. I got really, really upset. And I'll tell you why. So, I think I've mentioned before that on stream, I don't really like playing like single player games on stream too much because I'm just the type of person who I go through games at my own pace and I sort of like to just digest the game as it comes to me. And if I'm playing a single player game, that is a little bit it's harder to do because I'm splitting my attention on also trying to commentate, also talking to people in the chat, and being entertaining. I like to have a focused experience when I'm playing a game where I can just focus on what's happening and how I'm reacting to it and what my brain is going through, and sometimes just having my own experience, right? Multiplayer games are, I think, slightly better for me on stream, but depending on what game it is, they can be a little bit exclusive to people watching, right? Like, not everyone's going to be super interested in a game, or not everyone's going to be able to hop in and play with me or something like that, because I do like playing with people in my audience. So I kind of found this very fun thing a little while ago, which is, hey, I like watching old B movies. A lot of these movies are in the public domain. Why don't I just do some streams of just watching B movies? If I want to do a stream, why don't I watch some B movies? Because they're in the public domain, they won't get dinged by copyright, and it's a lot of fun to just kind of hang out and watch something. And the few times I've done it, it's been a lot of fun. People getting in on it in the chat, even for like a kind of boring movie, right? So I have this like 50 movie like 50 movie like it's all like genre films, like fantasy and sci-fi and horror stuff. This big pack that's just like, I think I got it for like $7, and we watched a movie called Moon of the Wolf, which I believe was a TV movie that was just cut together and released as a film on some home release at some point. It's from the 70s. Moon of the Wolf is 90% of it is a fairly boring murder mystery in a little Louisiana bayou town, and then occasionally, like, there's like there's 2 deaths in the whole movie by way of werewolf. They clearly had no budget, and they were saving it all for the 3rd act. So there is also, they had to probably fit to like standard. I'm imagining I believe this was on television, and they probably had to capitulate to some kind of TV standards for what they could and couldn't show. So you only get Wolfman at the like tail end of the movie, pun not intended. And to be fair, the Wolfman makeup is pretty good. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good Wolfman. It was just like, for a fairly boring movie for most of the time, it was pretty fun to riff on and talk shit with chat about. It was it was a good time. Then I decided, you know what, I think I've got one more movie in me. Let's look through this. Oh, hey, Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. A classic, just weird B movie, has a big underground like cult following for how strange it is. We pop it in. It's also a public domain. You can watch the whole thing on YouTube. So I'm like, okay, cool. We pop it in. People in chat got really excited to watch it. And then within 5 minutes, the stream got interrupted, which took me by complete surprise. I was not expecting that to happen. So let me explain to you. People might be familiar with how the copyright claim system works on videos, but for live streams, it's a little different. So when you do a live stream and they detect copyrighted content, or as they call it, third-party content, if you show it for long enough, the system automatically interrupts your live stream. It doesn't take it down. It doesn't stop the stream, but it basically blacks it out and shows like an error message to viewers. And that is because they're trying to stop people from just like, I don't know. I remember a few years ago, you could just find live streams that were like 12 hours of Family Guy episodes, completely unlicensed, just showing Family Guy or something like that. So my stream got interrupted, which made no sense because it's in the public domain. What are you talking about? I paused the stream. or you know, I pause the movie, I go back to just my face, and after a minute, the stream returns, and I'm like, that's super weird and fucked up and annoying. I tried to put a filter over the movie. Didn't work. Happened again. So I said, okay, that is really annoying. Why don't we watch a different thing that has to be public domain? So we watch a different movie on the same disc called Teenagers from Outer Space, another public domain movie from like the 60s. Again, public domain, no copyright at all. Guess what happens? The whole stream gets taken down. The whole stream gets taken down because they say you've been streaming copyrighted content so consistently and you have ignored our warnings. We're going to delete. The stream is ending and it's not being saved as an archived like video. It's being deleted. So you can't find the first stream. All you can find is the next stream that I made immediately after called I Hate YouTube, I Hate YouTube. And we decided to watch. I was like, okay, let's try one more. And someone suggested a third public domain film, Robot Monster, a classic, which I've actually never seen. We get 2 minutes into it. Stream goes down. Interrupted. What the fuck? So I come back. I was really pissed. You can go watch it. I essentially did the walkthrough of. So now here's the awesome thing. If I go to my channel right now, I have. Let me go back to my main Cellar. I have channel violations, active community guideline strikes. I have 2 different warnings for 2 different things. One is the the TLC video that got taken down for nudity, which I thought was bullshit. That one expires in a few days. The next one is for third-party content, as they call it, on that live stream. And I basically, on camera, walked through the demeaning appeal process that they force you through. Or the re-education, the fucking YouTube guidelines school test that they put you through. Where they're like, is this a violation? And you go, yes, it's a violation. Is this a violation? You go, no, this isn't a violation. They're like, that's what you should do. I'm like, I did do that, you. I got very upset. And I think I'm justified in it. So afterwards, I ended up playing. I was like, fuck it. Okay, I guess I just have to play video games then. So I played Megaman X3. I'll talk about that in a second. But I want to talk about what happened after that stream finished, like an hour later. So during the stream, I sent in an appeal and I said all of them for the stream that got taken down, that got me a warning. And I said, all of the movies I watched are in the public domain. You can literally go click through the stream and look at the film and look, I have it listed on screen what movie I'm watching, and then just do a Google search. You can go do a YouTube search and watch them because they're all public domain. And it was bullshit. I basically submitted an appeal and I wrote that in the comment. These are all public domain. What are you talking about? Appeal rejected. No, you did violate our copyright. You did violate our copyrighted content by streaming something that is not copyrighted. Well, remember how in the second stream we watched a little bit of Robot Monster? You cannot see that part of the stream, those 2 minutes of the film that we watched. That's because in the hour after I finished it, essentially what happens is that after a live stream is done, it gets turned into a video, so to speak, on YouTube's end. And that's what the archive is that you can go find in the live tab of the channel. When it turns into a video, that's when YouTube can scan it for whatever it scans it for, right? Copyright violation, copyright claim on those 2 minutes of footage from someone called Watch TV, watch with a 4 instead of an A, like Leet speak. Their claim had blocked it in the entire region of North America, which is 50% of my audience, the US and Canada. That's like half of my audience. They blocked it over practically half the world. There was also a bunch of other English-speaking countries, a couple European countries. It was absolutely absurd. And I trimmed that out because fuck it. It doesn't matter. I would rather people be able to watch the live stream. It's like 2 minutes out of it. I went to go appeal. I tried to appeal it because it's actually fraudulent. It's actually fraudulent that they're claiming that they own Robot Monster, right? It was something like Robot Monster parentheses reference footage. So they essentially, what they've done is I looked them up, and I am not the first person to have been, scammed, defrauded by this company, Watch TV. I found out that they are a French company, of course, and essentially what they do is they list themselves as a distribution company, and all that they do is they take public domain, specifically public domain work, so they can't get sued for it. They submit them to different copyright like databases, and then they basically just shoot down people's uploads or usages of fully public domain works because the copyright system is so fucking broken. This is known as copy fraud, claiming you own something that you don't actually own. Here's the problem. As I found out, I was like, I want to go report these people. This has to be illegal. You can't just claim that you own something in the public domain and then essentially try to defraud people for something you can't own. You would never win in court, right? You could never win this in court. I don't want to take them to court because, right? Maybe if it was more of my business, if my channel was focused around it, I might. But, and I had a lot more money. But, like, I don't want it for 2 minutes of Robot Monster, and that's how they get you. That's how they get you, because it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it, because essentially, if you weren't aware, the stupid fucking way that this system is set up, when you submit an appeal, the person who claimed the content is the one who decides whether they were wrong. So of course they're never going to. It literally enables scammers. It enables scammers and copyright frauds. That's all it does. They decide? Are you kidding me? It's been like this for 10 plus years. They've never done anything to change it. It is the most ass backwards system ever. The community guidelines thing is wrong. They just have a fucking robot say no to you. It's just like a fake. It's just like a button that you press and it says no. This is for a copyright claim. It goes to the claimant. Are you kidding me? So, someone, I looked this up, and arguably this isn't even a YouTube issue. This is just like a general fucked issue. It turns out that under U.S. copyright law, which is what YouTube would be following, so they're a U.S.-based company, under U.S. copyright law, there are plenty of protections for copyright owners, but there are almost no protections on the public domain. Very few. It's actually, if you claim to own, if you fraudulently claim, if you are one of the, like this Watch TV, this French company, and you're a fraudulent frog, if you claim to own something that is in the public domain, which should be owned by everyone, no one exclusively, it is very hard to actually see consequences for that. There are like not really any, maybe if you impersonated people, I don't know, but apparently there's not really any laws on the books to keep people from just claiming parts of culture, which I think is ridiculous. That should be amended. I think that's insane. The idea of the public domain is so wonderful. It's so like pro-humanity, you know? It's so like the idea that there is just art that is owned by everyone, that anyone should be able to enjoy, that anyone should be able to access, anyone should be able to reproduce just because it should exist and it should be shared. I think that that is such a wonderful idea. And to me, on like a principle level, on a matter of principle, I think somebody scamming by claiming to own something that should not be owned, is and the system that enables that is like disgusting. I think as someone who cares about art and like culture and stuff, I think that's like morally wrong. I think that's ethically wrong. Obviously, they don't care. And apparently the courts don't care very much. So I feel like a little shit out of luck, because it's like, well, damn. It's such a bummer, because it's like, it is something that is so, I think is so great. It's such a fun experience because, you know, a few streams ago or a little while ago, I did a live stream of The Bat. I think I talked about that on this podcast. And it's a movie from the 1920s that like no one in chat had ever heard of, but a lot of people ended up enjoying it. And I really enjoyed it. And we found out like, oh, it influenced Batman and all that. And it was a genuinely good movie. It was a silent film. And it's like, wow, this is something that deserves to be remembered. This is something that it's really entertaining. It's got a lot of value, I think. And it's a public domain work. It's from the 1920s, you know? That's something that like, it's fun to share that with people and to bring that into people's lives. As like a little byproduct of running this channel, that I get to do these streams that are really fun. And I think it's such a shame that I feel like I can't do that anymore because of these fuckers, these actual fuckers who do this shit, that this company, YouTube, just allows to happen. They just allow it to happen. I think that there is something really like, you could do an interesting psychological study of people who do like YouTube for a living, because there is something really particular about this like kind of profession compared to like any other industry. The way that I describe it, it's so hard to describe. The people like, oh my God, when I was applying for healthcare, it was so hard to explain what my employment situation was like. I think I talked about that. The best analogy I can come up with is that I'm like a street magician, and YouTube owns the public park where I set up and do my magic tricks. And sometimes people will come and pay me money, and the park has a system where they might give me a little bit of revenue that they get from people coming in. I don't know. Let's say they have some attractions or something like that you can go pay for. And they'll give me like 3 cents for each $1. That's a lot, actually. They'll give me half of a cent for each $20. That's a better ratio for YouTube. Every now and again they have a robot whose gun misfires and shoots me in the back of the head, and I can't really do anything about it. I just kind of have to like live with a head wound for a bit. there's like, I'm not going to act like this is the hardest job in the world. That's ridiculous, right? But there are aspects that are very unique mental challenges that are like, man, I wish I had a union, you know? I wish I had an HR department. When everyone was so excited about, oh, what if Twitter's finally gonna die? What if Twitter's gonna shut down? I was like, dude, that's my HR department. You can't do that. How the fuck else does anyone get anything done on this website? YouTube's own systems are like pathetic. They are like embarrassingly pathetic for resolving anything. It is like so many aspects of it. That's why I don't monetize directly. That's why I monetize through Patreon, is I don't want to fucking deal with it. Like, oh my god, there's an animator on YouTube. His name is Rad Chad. He does a lot of like funny little fighting game animation shorts with like fighting game characters. And he uploaded this video. I felt so bad for him. His entire channel has been demonetized, and he can never monetize it. He can never monetize it again, because in one video he made a joke where like Neko Arc quotes the first line of Ted Kaczynski's the Unabomber Manifesto. It's the fucking meme. It's the one that starts with like industrial society, the consequences of the industrial revolution and its consequences have been a disaster for humanity, or something like that. That's like the first line, and it's just like, oh, it's funny that Neko Arc says that, and YouTube deemed that was inciting violence and did not listen to any of his appeals, and his entire channel has been demonetized. And the dude's fucking going through it, dude. I feel really bad for him. It's awful, and that's why I don't monetize through YouTube, because it's like at any moment they can fucking obliterate you without a thought for no reason. There is like an anxiety and a real like, you just kind of have to believe that it'll never happen to you. And also, you know, maybe try to insulate yourself in case it does. But like, you can't live your day to day in fear of that, because it's fucking debilitating. Like on the idea of like a union, like you can never set up a union of YouTubers, because there's always someone to replace you. There's always a scab, you know. And I doubt. I mean, the line between someone being a casual and professional YouTuber is so ill-defined that like, when does someone become just a hobbyist who happens to be uploading YouTube videos to a scab, if there were a union, right? Like, what it's absolutely useless, right? Can everyone just pull out of the website? No, they can't, right? They just can't. Someone will replace them. There's nowhere else to go. It is such a peculiar set of circumstances when you do this as a profession that really produces a mental affect that I don't think you'll find anywhere else. Even in like other entertainment industries, you know, I don't think you'll find that specific. I would love to read a sociology paper about YouTubers' relationship to the algorithm, or the spirits, as I call them, because it really does border on like a religious fear. Like, you have to make sacrifices to people will literally say it like as a joke, but you know, there's like some truth to it, appeasing the algorithm or something like that. There was this whole thing, like, so one example, there used to be this common piece of wisdom that was like, make sure that the title of the name of the video file when you upload it has a bunch of keywords in it, because the algorithm scans for file names, and it includes file names when in it, like for recommendations. So put a bunch of keywords in the file name. I found out there was, and then apparently at some point it was like, oh, they don't do that anymore. I found out there was never any evidence to suggest that that happened. It was just some kind of thing that someone came up with, and because the rules are so ill-defined and no one knows what's going on. I don't think Google knows what's going on. They excuse me. The people just might as well be, might as well be. And it's like this YouTube superstitions in the age of knowledge, It's such a there's some fascinating stuff you could do, and I hope that in the coming years, genuinely, we could get some kind of studies done on people like me, and our unique situations. Anyway, I played Megaman X3, and I do want to talk about it, actually, because I've never actually beaten the game. I'm a huge Mega Man fan. I've never actually beaten X3. I've only played the first 3. Am I a sham because I've never played X4? I probably am. I gotta play it at some point. I've played a lot of Mega Man games. So Mega Man X3 is interesting because it was the first one, and I think the only one in the X series that was not developed by Capcom. It was developed by a different studio called... Oh Lord, I just had them up. Minakuchi Engineering, who were also the people who did... That's weird. Moby lists it as Capcom, although that is not... Capcom might have had some development help. Minakuchi Engineering also did the Mega Man Game Boy games, also known as Rockman World. They did the Wily Wars, which was like the trilogy release that was on the Genesis. Weirdly enough, they made Kicks, or they published Kicks or Quicks or something. I don't know how they were involved in it. Kicks is like a weird puzzle. It's kind of a neat puzzle game. It's where you're drawing lines in a box to like make smaller boxes inside of it. Starting from the borders, and you have to avoid, like while you're drawing, you have to avoid getting hit by this weird shape that's bouncing around. Kind of a cool game. QIX. I think it's, I don't know, something like that. Yeah, so they actually developed, for some reason, they did not develop X3. Or sorry, they developed X3 and not Capcom. And you can kind of feel it. X3 so having played all 3 of the first of like the Super Nintendo trilogy of Mega Man X, or having them all like kind of in my mind, X3 is probably the worst one, but it's not a bad game by any means. There's a lot of things I actually really like about it. The first thing that comes to mind is, man, the mobility is really fun to use in that game. So they added on to the stuff from X2. So X1 had the dash, classic Mega Man thing. X2 added the air dash, which is, I love the air dash in X2. And X3 adds an additional upwards dash, which I also think is really cool because you can use it. It feels so good. It's really honestly impressive for a game of this time period to have such a free-flowing movement as X3 does. Because there's all the stuff you can do with dashing. You can dash jump off of walls for like more momentum. You can do all sorts of air dashing stuff, jump off a wall, dash back into it to avoid things. There's like the wall sliding. And then they add in the up dash, and the up dash, you pause in the air, you stall your aerial momentum, and then zip upwards after a second. And you can cancel out of it at like any time. So you can do some honestly pretty intricate, cool movement by like jumping off a wall, up dash, canceling, and like falling back into the wall, or over here and like dodging this thing. It just really good feeling game to control. X feels really fun in that game. The general level design also pretty solid. There's some parts where it, I think, lacks a little bit. There's some bits that I find a little bit tedious. I would say it's funny because, I mean, judging a Mega Man game is hard because so many of them are like the same. So I guess it might be easier to break it down by the kind of like Mega Man categories, like the criteria that I kind of think of, which is like the level design, the weapons, the music and all that. The level design for the most part is pretty solid. There's some fun stuff in there. A couple levels are, a lot of them have like little gimmicks. Blizzard Buffalo or Billzard Buffalo, if you abide by the typo in the intro to the Saturn version, has like these ice. It's like an ice level, and I'm at a conflict because it might be one of the most beautiful backgrounds for an ice level I've ever seen. I love the background to Blizzard Buffalo's stage. Go look it up. It's just this awesome scene. The music is great. Presentation wise, amazing. The ice physics on a flat surface, they're fine, but there is something really weird about the momentum. Like, you can dash on the ice and you'll slide a little bit after you stop. But if you, God help you, if you walk, take one step on an incline, on a downwards incline, you will zip down like a block of concrete into the ocean. You will just zoom. And I think the first instance of that, on the first screen of the level, is like right into a pit of spikes. And then so is the next one. And it's like, why did you, like, come on, what the hell? I feel like the way that you set that up is the first one drops you into like a little pit that you can just hop out of, a little bit of 4-panel design. But instead they're like, drop you right into spikes. There's like a little bit of like slightly sloppy level design like that. Toxic Seahorse's stage has like some water that has, I don't know, it feels like they didn't really commit to it doing very much. It just makes it a little harder to like wall jump or something like that. There's plenty of fun bits in the levels, it's general, straightforward, good Mega Man X running and gunning and wall jumping and dashing, very similar to the previous games. But with these little bits of like tedium. There's these moments in X3 where you feel like it's not really hard. You just have to be patient. And that's kind of annoying. Like, a lot of the bosses are weird because they oscillate between completely, like, they between having like Cloudman syndrome or, oh shit, this one's like actually very hard even with the weakness weapon. Or this one's genuinely like, it's a real fight even with the weakness weapon. Cloudman syndrome is, I don't know if anyone, is that just a me term? I forget. In Mega Man 7, if you have Cloudman's weakness weapon, he literally can't do anything. You just hit him and then he falls and then he rises back up and then you use it again. And I think, is it the screen clear one? So it like hits full screen. It's like a completely pathetic fight, It's like the Mega Man series has always had this thing that's either like, your mileage may vary on how you feel about it, but when you have the weakness weapon of a boss, they can just be complete pushovers of just like impressively easy fights. And sometimes like some people find that cool, some people find that rewarding, especially if you figure it out on your own by trial and error, like experimentation with the weapons. Other people might find that a little bit disappointing. It sort of varies for me. Sometimes it's sometimes it's just kind of nice to be able to phone in a boss fight. But there are like particular mini bosses and just these instances in the game where you just have to wait. Like there's this mini boss in, I want to say Tunnel Rhino stage, that's like a big centipede thing, and you can only hit this one particular, like only its head, and the head is very small, and it comes out of the walls, and it lets out these two little bouncing projectile things, which are not difficult at all to dodge or destroy, and you just kind of have to wait. You just sort of have to wait. No, that's on Neon Tiger's stage. Just these like tiny little moments that just aren't quite as good, where the action really gets broken up. The upgrades in X3 are a little hit or miss also. I think for the most part, they're fine. The leg upgrades are really fun because they give you the air dash and the up dash. The game, they're like basically required. They're in Blizzard Buffalo's stage, by the way. They're basically required. There are parts of the game I don't know how you could do without those parts. I think by far the most disappointing is the arm upgrades. The arm upgrades in the X series always function as they give you a super powered up shot. So you can charge to like level 3, right? These let you charge to level 4 or I don't know, 5 or something like that. In X2 has the bell. It's so good to use. Like the second shot, so you fire your regular charged shot, and then you have another one stored up that is like this like swirling, spiraling projectile that just shoots forward and just obliterates everything. It feels so good to use. The one in X3, genuinely, the arm upgrade in X3 feels like a downgrade. It is one of the few cases where getting an upgrade feels worse than not having the upgrade. Essentially, the way it works is you charge up like your super shot, and it's this, again, like this small spiraling projectile that you shoot out that definitely does more damage, but it's nothing really special. And when it hits something, it will occasionally, like, I don't know if it's like if it deals damage or if it like hits a wall or some part that's like invulnerable. It does this weird pattern where another projectile will come out of it and like move backwards and then kind of fan out and then spread forwards. It's just sort of awkward to use. But it also gives you access to the weirdest, most special shot type, which is where the idea is kind of neat. It's essentially you shoot out the first projectile, the spinning one, and then you shoot out the other charge shot. Because if you charge up to level 3, you get the special shot, and then you get your regular charge shot. And if you shoot the charge shot into the special shot, it like creates a whole fan of projectiles that like spread out and then like very slowly spread out and then move forward in this pattern. And it's just like kind of hard to use and make use of, and it's slow, and it causes a lot of slowdown on screen. The Mega Man games have always had a problem since the first classic series game with slowdown, where they just like they liked to put more stuff on screen than those consoles could handle. It's always been a thing, and that's like the super special charge shot does not help with that. Like the game gets kind of hard to play at certain points because of the massive amount of slowdown that occurs. The special weapons also have a little bit of issue with being awkward to use as well. There's like 2 of them that are essentially fire a like missile type projectile that hangs in the air for a second and then speeds up and accelerates forward. There's like it's super weird. There's 2 that work the exact same way. Tunnel Rhino's like drill thing, and then Blizzard Buffalo's ice spike thing. The toxic seahorse's like acid shot thing is this odd sort of lobbing projectile that feels like it just has, the range is just a little too short. It doesn't go quite far enough. Triad Thunder is this strange sort of, it's kind of like a shield. It surrounds you with this like triangle of electricity, and then it shoots out at the points of the triangle. And it's sort of weird to hit stuff with it. I actually like Crush Crawfish's weapon, which is like this splitting it's like this splitting buzzsaw thing. It comes out as one large projectile, and then it splits into two, and then moves backwards. It like spreads vertically up and down, and then those two projectiles move backwards. Actually sort of fun to use. Kind of a neat weapon. The other ones are like, what are the other special weapons in that game? Oh, the gravity well is fine. That's like a screen clearing kind of thing. It's sort of cool. Neon Tiger has Ray Splasher. Is that what it is? It just shoots a bunch of projectiles in like a shotgun pattern. It's fine. It's decent. Like most of the weapons, they're okay, if not like a little awkward to use, either because of the directions they move in, the speed that they go at, the angles that they hit, or the just sort of behavior of them. Like it's not like an amazing, for me, the gold standard. I think that the game with the one Mega Man game that has like the best set of weapons is 6. I think Mega Man 6 is, I'm sure there's other ones that have comparable weapon sets that I'm just not thinking of, but Mega Man 6 to me feels like every single weapon is good. There are like no truly bad weapons. There's some that are slightly more niche, like Windman's, which isn't super special, but every single one feels like it fulfills a different purpose, and it makes it so fun to switch between them. It really feels like a game that's pushing the design of the series really well. You know, there are games like Mega Man 4 where I think in general the weapons are all good. They're just very samey. They all just kind of shoot a thing forward with a little twist. They just shoot a thing straight forward. You know, so there's a lot of variance in the way that the weapon selection of the way that I interpret them. I could ramble about Mega Man for a long time. The other sort of, so the weapons they're fine. They're decent. The level design is overall pretty good, although there are parts where you just have to wait. I think the game really starts to drop off, like really fall apart in its last couple stages. There are moments that I just absolutely despise. There's this god awful part. Like that's the one time I save stated, or I was not save stating the whole game, and then I hit this part where you have to like rapidly wall jump up this corridor, up this like tower, where the walls are crushing like inwards, but they're not like both sides are crushing inwards at the same time. One section is moving to the right, and then the next one up above will be moving to the left, and the next one up above is moving to the right. And I hate that shit. And it's like right in the middle of the level, right in the middle of the stage. It's so easy to die. It's I just save stated there. The final boss actually sucks ass. For real. Like, the final boss sucks. Sigma sucks in this game. Sigma's always been hard. He's always been a hard boss. But I really dislike the design of... So he's got 2 phases. The first phase is really hard. But honestly, once I learned the pattern, it wasn't that bad. It was, again, just executing the pattern over and over and over and over again. He shoots out these fireballs really rapidly, really, really fast, like way faster than any other thing in the game attacks. They shoot, he fires like 6 volleys, but they're in like a consistent pattern. I got this down pat. I was on this for like two hours last night. It's like the first one is low and you have to hop over it. The second one hits high and you can just let it sail over your head. The third one hits in the middle and you can dash underneath it. And he does that twice. He repeats that pattern twice. So hop, wait, dash. Hop, wait, dash. Then you have to dash into the corner, because after he does that, he jumps into the air and shoots some projectiles downwards. But if you're too close to the center, he'll shoot them straight down and they'll spread out, which is harder to dodge and it's harder to get a hit in on him. But if you're in the corner, he'll shoot at the corner and then you can just dash underneath him and hit him for free. And then halfway through the fight, he starts throwing his shield, which like boomerangs back to him, and then it's actually pretty easy to work into the pattern. It's just you're doing it over and over and over again. It's just the length. Even when you have the weapon he's weak to, it's just the length of the fight. When you have it down pat, it's so long. You're doing the same thing over and over. But it's okay. Like, I learned it, and it was just doing it. The second fight sucks so much dick, dude. I hate that fucking second fight. Kaiser Sigma might be one of the worst final bosses in the series. He is in this gigantic armor. He can only face in one direction. He takes up at least half the screen at any given moment. His whole pattern is okay. So first of all, his actual hitbox of where most of him is invulnerable. The actual hitbox of where you can deal damage to him is so vanishingly small and weird. It's like his head, kind of, but also the area slightly above it. He's got these shoulder vents, like these pipes that let out these fucker mines. Essentially, his whole pattern is he lifts into the air, he moves forward, he drops down, you have to dash under him. He releases some mines from his shoulder things. He shoots some missiles at you. The missiles are annoying because they either come out as a cluster, which all hit at around the same time and are very easy to dodge, or he shoots them out as a spread, which hit like 1, 2, 3, 4 in sequence. And are much harder to dodge, and it's super unclear when he's going to do what and how you have to dodge them. You really just have to improvise on the spot and just kind of hope that you get the easier version of the attack. He's also shooting these fucking mines. The mines are easily the worst part, because the mines have weird behavior where every third one homes in on you. Some of them will move in like a preset pattern, and then the third one will like move forward and then track you. Like home in on wherever you were at the point that it stopped. And it leads to these situations where you cannot dodge anything. You can actually just completely screw yourself, where he shoots the missiles out and you can dodge the missiles, but you can't dodge the mine as well. You have to get hit by one or the other. And it always does like a third of your health every time it hits, and it sucks. And then he does another, he goes up into the air, and then he goes back to the other side of the room, then he drops down, and then you gotta shoot him in his face / shoulders. He has no weakness weapon besides just the regular X-Buster, and he takes so many hits. It is the most miserable boss fight I've played in a really long time. Just for the sheer length. There is nothing new happening. He has this little ray attack that he does depending on whether or not you were on the top or bottom half of the screen when he lands. That's it. That's the whole pattern. That's the whole boss. It is just patience and hoping that you get lucky on the attacks and hoping that the mines don't screw you over. It took me 2 hours because he has so much fucking health and you just can't do that much damage to him very quickly. You can get really lucky on a couple good cycles and aim properly. You have to be on the wall. There's no place you can just stand and hit him. You have to be sliding down the wall, which leads to all sorts of weird timing stuff. Using the max charge shot is really hard because more often than not, it ends up dinking off on the part of him that's invulnerable. So you have to use the level 1 charge shot because it's narrower. Oh my god, it's so fucking slow. One of the most miserable boss fights I've played in forever. And it left me with such a sour taste in my mouth that it made me think about something. So there's some people will say, like, okay, the most important part of your game to make good, I mean, ideally the whole game would be good, but if you have to choose, the most important part is the beginning, because that's the part that most people are going to play. And if you want to hook people in, you have to at least make the beginning the best part. That's why so many games design the first level or the first area last, because they're taking all the skills that they learned, right? I would say the second most important part to make good is the end. The last 10% of your game, I think, should be good, because if the first bit is bad, if the first segment is bad, that's going to turn people off. If the last segment is bad, it is going to leave people with such a sour taste in their mouth, where the last impression, a bad ending can completely color your perception of anything, of a show, of a movie, of any, like, there are movies, okay, what is it called? The Game? Who's in that? There's a movie called, yes, with, it's a David Fincher movie starring Michael Douglas and Sean Penn from 1997. It's a great movie. It's a great thriller. And then the ending sucks balls. The twist at the end fucking blows, and it killed like the whole movie for me in retrospect. It is so stupid. And it makes me like legitimately not want to watch it again. It's a movie that I went from like, if it had even an okay ending, I would have gone, oh yeah, no, I wouldn't mind watching that again, to, oh fuck this, I don't want to go through this again. This movie's bullshit. A bad last impression is the thing that I think prevents people from recommending it to people, which I think is important. There are so many people who will say, oh, just skip X3. Just skip it, and you don't have to play it. Would I say skip it? You know what's funny? The music is weird. Okay, the music is funny. The Mega Man is known for its having great music, and X3 is a little bit hit or miss for me. It doesn't quite... Okay. I would say that traditionally, when I think of X music, I think of like metal. Like power metal is how I would describe it. Maybe that's not exactly the right term, but really strong melodies, MIDI guitar and bass, sometimes horns or orchestra hits, powerful, very melodic, catchy songs. Think about like Boomer Kuwanger's theme. Just really driving melodies, total earworms, with the occasional, outlier. I think of like Bubble Crab's theme from Mega Man X2 with the xylophone. It goes bum 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 ba-dum bum ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum bum ba-dum bum bum bum, and the bass is like boom, ba-dum bum 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 bum, and it gets all like groovy and underwater music-y, X3 is weird because a lot of the songs, I'm like, okay, I'm listening to Neon Tiger's stage theme, and I'm like, this isn't quite clicking for me. It's just, there's something that's just kind of missing with it. I don't remember the exact like how it goes, so I'll just do an impression of it. But this thought occurred to me, and I said, okay, I'm imagining this song, but with real instruments and performed as like a heavy, slow, like metal song something like bomb bomb bomb, something almost like doomy, you know that one Doom song, it's like don don da don don da don don da don 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 don. A lot of X3 songs kind of have that vibe to me, where they would almost fit as like a groovy, dark, like metal song, like something really heavy. And I'm picturing it with that kind of an instrumentation, and in my mind it sounds a lot better. Like it makes a lot more sense to me. I think the previous games, X1 and X2, their music is very complementary to the MIDI soundscape that they were using, whereas X3 isn't quite as much. There's advantages and disadvantages to using MIDI, and I feel like kind of knowing what sorts of instruments to use and in what combinations. And there's plenty of good tracks, like Toxic Seahorse has a good track. The opening stage has a really good song. The opening is just in general really cool and cinematic. Using almost entirely just like in-game, like regular sprites of Mega Man and Zero. I didn't even talk about Zero. Zero, this marks the first time that Zero is playable in any game, is in Mega Man X3. And on stream, I did not play as him a single time. Sorry, you play as him during the intro, during the first stage. But the rest of the game, I did not call him a single time. He's a thing that you can call in. You spawn in as X, but it's not like X4, where you have a Mega Man and a Zero playthrough. For a few reasons. The first one is that so number one, I think if you die as Zero or you game over as Zero, you can't use him again or something. He's like a weird limited resource. The second one is that the first time I played this game, I remember like, oh my god, I'm going to play as Zero now. And Zero does not feel good in this game. I'd have to see how he plays in X4, but in 3, he is very clunky and weird. He feels kind of slower. He doesn't have the same like air dashing or up dashing that X does, which means that he is he's lower mobility. And just the way that his weapons work is weird. He can charge up his buster to like 3 or 4 levels, but he shoots like one shot and then another shot, and then he slashes with his sword. And it just, something about it is just a little awkward feeling. He doesn't feel great in that game. I think if you want, like, personally, maybe the best Zero gameplay, the best playable version of him, in my opinion, of the games that I've played, it's got to be the Zero series. The Zero series is, like, phenomenal. It feels so good. I would essentially pitch them as being kind of like 2D Devil May Cries. Not quite the same focus on combat or combos. Sorry, combos, I should say. But in, like, the speed and the range of options that are available to you. Like, it has the feeling of a character action game where you are just speeding through levels and switching between weapons and unlocking stuff. And it is very cool. Those are great games. Yeah, Zero's not great. This game has a lot of upgrades. It's got a lot of upgrades. Like, some people call it bloated. I see where they come from on that. It has, like... So it's got all of the armor upgrades. It's got 4 different ride armors. You can unlock the ride armors, which is cool. It's a cool idea. And there's, like, certain parts of the level where you can, like, summon them in. They also have upgrade chips, which are like additional upgrade, like enhancements to different parts of your armor. And then there's also this thing called the gold armor, which is like another super mode, but you can't get the gold armor if you get even a single one of the enhancement chips for some reason. It's a little weird. It's just kind of weird. There's a little bit arguably too much. Yeah, It's not a bad game by any means, but you can definitely tell it's a little bit shaky. I want to say like 80 to 90% of it is quite good. And then the rest of it is, I don't like this very much. I don't like the rest of it. But definitely worth checking out, I think. If you're it's not the most standout game in the series. I would say the most essential ones to play would probably be like 1 and 4, just based off of sheer popularity. I should really go through and actually play all of the X games that I haven't played yet. So just 4 onwards, essentially. I don't want to play 6 and 7, although it would be funny. I should just buy those collections. Don't I own? I own. Fuck. What Mega Man collections do I own? I forget. Anyway, that's X3. Not bad, but not the best in the series. I want to talk a little bit about a game. An article that came out is on Noisy Pixel. Capcom's Kunitsu-Gami Path of the Goddess falls short of sales expectations despite positive reviews. So this is, unfortunately, something that I sort of expected. Kunitsu-Gami, if you don't remember, is a game that Capcom was showing off for a while. They put out like 2 or 3 trailers that they played during some shows, and I did not really know what it was about. I didn't really care about it until I saw that it had a demo out, and I decided, and I saw that it was getting insane reviews. I checked out the demo, and I talked about it on the podcast. I loved the demo. I thought it was really cool. This article basically says, this is coming from GameBiz. GameBiz.jp. Okay, so this is a translation of an article. Capcom basically said that they said despite the positive critical reception the game has received from players and critics, it has failed to meet sales expectations. They noted insufficient. I think this is this article says marking. I want to say it's marketing. I think they meant marketing. Insufficient marketing and failure to generate hype before the title's release. And I would actually agree with them on that quite a bit. I think that this Kunitsu-Gami was a game that was failed in maybe every single way by its marketing, despite being something that I think you could easily sell to maybe not a huge audience, but for the budget that I kind of get the impression it was at, a much bigger audience. First of all, the name is bad. I understand people were comparing it to Okami. Okami is 3 letters and is very easy for a non-Japanese speaker to say and remember. Kunitsu-Gami, I couldn't even remember I think when I sat down to talk about the game, I couldn't even I was like, was it Kinutsu or Kinitsu-Gami? It's just that game with the Japanese name that just, maybe it works in Japanese, but I think that for an international release, they should have localized the title to something else. They should have picked something that maybe translates a little better. Kunitsu-Gami should mean Kunitsu-Gami meaning local deity or gods of the land. Yeah, you can come up with a better name than that. So God of the Land, Path of the Goddess. If they just called it Path of the Goddess or something like that, because that's actually descriptive. You are literally, the game is, every level is about making a path for a shrine, like for like a princess, shrine maiden, maybe goddess incarnate. So first of all, the branding is bad. It is a difficult title to remember because you've got these weird kind of Kunitsu-Gami, like very Japanese sounding, but not very easy to remember. It just kind of, you ever have that thing where you're watching an anime and there's just way too many fucking characters and they all have Japanese names and you can't keep them straight without looking at them, without seeing the character themselves? Like, you're like, wait, who is that again? Like, at a certain point, a lot of the names, especially if they're not in your native language, kind of start to blur together. Second of all, like in talking about branding, I discovered this when looking it up. I was like, man, this game's like cover art, for lack of a better word, like the poster art essentially that you'd see on online storefronts, is not very good. You can barely even see, it's like weirdly washed out with this like golden layer over it. It's just really, it's like a close-up of something. It's clearly like supposed to be a traditional Japanese like woodblock painting, like an ukiyo-e, but it's just hard to, the composition and the way that it's cropped is not good for understanding like anything. You just see Japanese. I saw some people saying it looks like a visual novel. That's what you get from it. Nothing to communicate to you that this is a tower defense hack and slash game, which I think is a very appealing concept to many people. Not everyone's going to be into it, but I think a lot of people would be more interested if you told them about that. Second of all, the trailers. The trailers were not very good. I remember watching at least 2 trailers for this during various award shows and summer games showcases and stuff like that. And I just did not really understand what the game was. It didn't do... I think I said maybe back when I talked about the demo, but I feel like if Nintendo made this trailer, it would be way better. I feel like if Nintendo had made trailers, it would be way better, because Nintendo actually focuses on presenting their games in a way to tell you exactly what the gameplay is about. There's just something about them that's something about their editors that are just really good. Whoever they get to do their trailers for their games is really good at giving you, here's the concept. Here's what's interesting about the gameplay. It focused a lot on like, I don't know, the world and the setting, which are like fine. They're kind of cool, but not the first thing I would sell people on. There are so many games set in like fantasy or historical fantasy Japan nowadays that showing someone this is like, it doesn't do much to stand out. It also doesn't have a particularly stylized art style like Okami did that, in its day made it stand out a lot. It's, Kunitsu-Gami has a very, it just kind of looks like an RE Engine game without a ton of special filters or shaders or anything. That's just kind of what it looks like. It's a very cool game, and I think the comment that stuck out to me the most was someone saying, this is the type of game that in 10 years I am going to want to play another game like it, and I'm going to be disappointed because there won't be any others. It's going to be the only game of its kind. And unfortunately, I really do think that the marketing let it down. I don't think that it's a game that exactly failed on its own merits. I've heard some people say that deeper into the game, it gets kind of a little repetitive. I get it. I mean, I feel like most tower defense games kind of fall into that camp. You have to really like tower defense to want to go through like all of them in a lot of cases, but that is such a, I don't think people pass games up based on, oh yeah, like 15 hours in, it gets a kind of repetitive. I don't think people pass up a game on that. I really do think it was the way that they marketed the game that let it down. Certainly like a kind of niche game, but something that had a lot of potential. It was pointed out to me that let me look. Hang on, let me look up the guy. Let me look up the director of the game, because he made... Dude, for a second, when I was scrolling down the Moby game page, I thought I saw Clover, and I was like, what? I guess they got the Okami on the brain. This game reviewed so well. It's insane. Because the guy had director Shuichi Kawata. He was an art director on, what is this? Is this the same game? Well, this is the first game. No, this is the first game that he was an actual lead director on. This is like his game. He has been an art guy at Capcom since 2003. His first game was Tenchu, Wrath of Heaven on PlayStation 2. He was like a cinematic designer. I'm assuming that's I don't know exactly what that entails, on the original Resident Evil 4. He worked on Lost Planet. He did a lot of like cinematics and art direction on like Resident Evil games. A lot of Resident Evil. And this was like his first breakout thing of like, he's the director. And I want to repeat, I think, what I said when I talked about the game last time, which is, I think that this is a guy who has a lot of potential to make something really cool. A lot of people describe this as, this feels like a pet project or a passion project. And I think that's a good thing. I think it's really cool to see so much funding given towards a game that, the way I describe it is, it feels like a game that someone really wanted to make. Like, you had this idea and you're like, oh, there's like no game like this. I have to make this. I have to do this idea because no one else is doing it. And I am so into it. That's what Kunitsu-Gami felt like to me. And that was really, I could feel it through the screen. And that was really nice. And I think that being able to take a concept like that, which hasn't been, as far as I know, not done that, I guess, I don't know, Brutal Legend, maybe. And to make something that I thought was really fun, of what I played of it, shows a lot of potential. And my whole thing was, they should get this guy to work on like a bigger, safer title. They should get this guy to work on something else, because it seems like he can organize a team and direct a game pretty competently to put out a good product. I hope that the next thing, I like despite the fact that this is a failure, I hope that Capcom can take good lessons from Kunitsu-Gami. And I appreciate the fact that they actually cited the marketing of the game, because I think that is the biggest problem that it had in gaining sales, specifically gaining sales. You know, the worst thing would be, well, new ideas are bad. We just have to play it safe. I think that's the worst conclusion that they could draw from this. I hope that they won't. And I hope that the guy who directed it, Shuichi Kawata, they actually do believe in his ability to make something. We'll see in a few years. So yeah, unfortunately, Kunitsu-Gami was a bit of a sales disappointment, but hey, who knows? Maybe in 5 years, this will be like one of those situations where it's a game that only grows in appreciation as people kind of... There's going to be someone who like totally champions this game and is like, I don't know, like Asura's Wrath or something like that, another Capcom game. Metal Gear Rising was another game I remember kind of coming out and just sort of, it was here and there, and I don't remember it making a huge splash when it came out. And then year by year, it just kind of grew a little bit, and people started talking about it, and then people started talking about it more, and then more people started checking it out. So it can absolutely happen, you know. The long-term sales of something are absolutely a factor, you know. I think it's fair to say that in the first year of something's release, it didn't sell well. That's fair. But, I mean, Capcom is no stranger to that. I believe there's some kind of anecdote about how the Street Fighter live-action movie, the Hollywood one that is kind of wonderfully bad, that movie through like television syndication has made Capcom like $1 billion. There was some anecdote about how like the Street Fighter movie has literally funded like multiple Capcom games in their entirety. Because over the years they just we get a little bit from it being played on TV here and then over here, and then we re-release it, and then because you know they didn't have to invest very much to make it. It was like the studio that took the hit, so they took all the benefit from it. Well, speaking of Kunitsu-Gami, did you know that it happens to be nominated for Best Sim/Strategy at this year's The Game Awards? So I will totally be streaming the Game Awards again. It's always a fun time. Even if they are always, I feel like every single time they're kind of boring, but they're also kind of fun. You know? The nominations came out, and I'm going to be real. You guys know I'm the least trendy guy in the world. So I have not played most of them because I am not like Black Myth Wukong, more like Wizardry 8. I thought it was very funny that like 3 days before the nominations went live, they made this announcement that was like, hey, it is totally cool for DLCs to be nominated for categories, specifically Game of the Year. And everyone was like, I think I know what that means. And yes, Shadow of the Erd Tree did, in fact, get nominated for Game of the Year. As well as, it's so funny, Game of the Year and Best Game Direction are the exact same picks. It's very funny. Game of the Year is picks are Astrobot, Balatro, cool inclusion, Black Myth Wukong, Shadow of the Erd Tree, FF7 Rebirth, and Metaphor Refantasio. Actually, like, not a terrible lineup. 2024 was a slower year for games for a number of reasons. One is that 2023 was a big year. It was a big year. Just because of a particular confluence of dev cycles, meaning that like 10 hugely anticipated games all came out last year. Also, with the fact that a lot of pandemic restrictions kind of came off over the course of 2023. Things were kind of getting quote unquote back to normal, and people just had a little bit more money. Inflation still sucks now in the US, but it was just like a couple factors meant that big games were coming out. People wanted to spend money on games. So now that that kind of load has been blown, it turns out that sometimes you just have a bit of a slower year, you know? I mean, one of the fucking nominations is a DLC for a game from last year. for the winner of last year. So, I mean, it is fun. Like, all of these, I've heard great things about all of these games. I played the demo for Fantasio. Liked it a lot. I'm sure it's a great game. Black Myth Wukong, I didn't hear many people in the West talking about it, but it was huge in China. I basically saw someone describe it as like, China has been such a big market for so long, and they've never had a game quite like this that hit on this very particular cultural note for them, where I think the way I heard someone describe it is like, imagine if in the year 2024, Call of Duty came out. Like the first, it's like if Americans invented Call of Duty, you know, specifically Modern Warfare. Maybe Modern Warfare was a bigger thing because it was in that sort of still sort of like a George Bush era, but so hugely successful game. I heard generally good things about it. I heard people loved Balatro. I've held off on playing Balatro because I have so much shit to play. Fuck. I'm not going to play FF7 Rebirth until I have literally avoided everything about that game and the remakes, the whole remake series, just because I haven't finished FF7 yet. Which I need to get back to. The game kind of slows down a little bit after Midgar, so I kind of fell off of it. I got to get back into it. Heard Astrobot was amazing. Cool. So I would be fine with any of these winning. I do think it is a little goofy to nominate a DLC. Here's an interesting discussion topic. How do we compare DLCs? Do we consider them to be separate games? Because there are examples where people will have little squabbles over the difference between a DLC and an expansion, right? And, you know, let's take a look at, I think the funniest example of this would be, let's say the new Final Fantasy XIV or World of Warcraft expansion. Uh, uh, that comes out, and okay, is it downloadable content? Yes, by definition, it is. Can you even buy MMO expansions physically anymore? I don't even think they offer that anymore. Is it downloadable? Yes, technically. Most games are downloadable content, but we kind of understand that DLC sort of refers to an add-on for an existing game. Like, it's a DLC is like support for a game, if that makes sense. So is it downloadable content? Yeah, by like a strict definition of the word. Is it an expansion? Well, it's literally described as an expansion. It expands the content. Does DLC not expand the content? Well, no, it usually does, even if it's in a tiny way. Let me see what the people have to say. Expansion versus DLC on r/gaming. Someone says, to me, a DLC is a small add-on like a quest or a weapon/outfits. An expansion adds an entirely new storyline, new enemies, gear, and areas to explore. I mean, that makes sense, but it's also like that's for only one genre. When a new character comes out in a fighting game, is that a DLC or an expansion? Because it is an entirely character-focused game, there's a whole new character. Is that expanding the base game? You know? Is a revision, like let's say when Killer Instinct 2013, when they added Shadow Lords, whole new game mode. Is that an expansion? Or not? People, for the most part, people kind of just go off of how much it's sort of, you know it when you see it. Expansions are bigger than DLC. But at the same time, to go back to like, let's say Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers, Heavensward, whatever, right? Many people also consider those to be kind of separate games. I know that it also could depend on the way they structure it. World of Warcraft structures their expansions such that technically you can just buy the expansion and just play that and just start from there. With 14, you gotta start from the beginning and work your way through the story all the way to the expansion, right? It's like a story expansion. Whereas WoW expansions, the Lich King, the fucking Cataclysm, all this stuff, right? Those are, you could have technically just bought, what's the last one? Return to Azeroth or Dragonflight? Is that what it was? Dragonflight? You could have just bought that and started from there clean. You don't have to play the base game. You don't have to go through all of the content of every single expansion that's been released over the last 20, 25 years. You can just buy that. These are words that we kind of just toss around with loose definitions, which is why I think it's funny when people get really uppity about the distinction between them. I think like there's that weird Idris Elba video when that Cyberpunk DLC came out, he's like, it's an expansion, it's not a DLC. That's not at all how he talks. It's an expansion, it's not a DLC, okay? It's an expansion. That's not at all how he talks. I'm terrible. He was really uptight about it, which maybe they told him to say. I don't know. But like, well, I guess I'll take your word for it. Does it depend on the size of the base game? Like, okay, later on, I'm gonna talk about Vampire Survivors Ode to Castlevania, which is classed as a DLC. Everyone refers to it as that. It says that on the Steam page, listed as DLC. It is like arguably as large. It is almost as large as the base game in terms of content that it offers. Almost. I would say it's comparable. It is an absolutely enormous package. Is it still a DLC? You know, like these questions get, you know, they go back and forth. And to some people I saw like say Shadow of the Erdtree is like a complete 40-hour experience. It can be counted as its own release. Other people say Erdtree is inexorably tied to the base game, and it's just an extension of the base game and not its own thing. You know, I don't think that the Game Awards is making some kind of artistic statement about the meaning of an expansion or a DLC or anything like that. I think they're putting it here because it's been a slightly slow year. Oh yeah, another reason it's been so slow, the fucking amount of layoffs that have been going on. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. A little bit more about the nominees. Of course, because it's me, I go to what does the fighting game category look like? Bit of a slow year for fighting games. The biggest release was probably Tekken 8 that came out earlier at the start, like in January. You know, but that was so early in the year. That almost felt like a 2023 game. That really felt like Street Fighter 6, Mortal Kombat 1, and Tekken 8 all kind of felt like they were part of the same, because they all got like revealed, or a bunch of stuff was happening with them around the same time. So it felt kind of like a 2023 game, but it's a 24 game. So Tekken 8 nominated. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, which is like, okay, fine, sure. It's variety. Grand Blue Fantasy Versus Rising, which is technically a new release. It's a revision of Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. Fine, okay, you know, it's a big overhaul to the game. Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection? Again, with the definitions. I get why they put this here, but it's a little weird, right? Like, it's not really a new game. It's a collection of old games. It adds a bunch of features, online connectivity, training modes, art galleries, tons of nice stuff. And it brings them all into one place. For many, for a couple of them, might be the first time they've ever been released on home console? I might be wrong on that. Has Children of the Atom ever been on home console? But, you know, like, these are old games. They're great. They're really good games. It was a big deal for the fighting game community. But, like, is this a new game? You know, in a slow year, maybe, you know? And then Multiverses, Fighting Game of the Year 2023 Multiverses is up for Fighting Game of... It would be so fucked up if they won twice in a row. If they won 2 years in a row. I would honestly laugh. I would find it hilarious. Like, all right, look. I know that award shows don't really matter. They don't matter a whole ton for video games. They're cool. They matter a lot for like an for like, okay, so the Oscars, for instance, the Oscars matter a lot, genuinely, for an industry perspective, because if you can say that you're an Oscar award winner, if you're an Academy Award winner, that's like genuinely really good for your career. Even nominated, you know? But if you won, oh shit, like that's a big, that literally gives you more bargaining power as an actor or a director or something like that. It's actually kind of important to win an Oscar if you're nominated. Game Awards is like, I don't know, it's like Jeff Keighley's little ad show, you know? It's his little advertisement show. I would be shocked if the most die-hard Multiverses fan said that could legitimately look me in the eyes and tell me it's Game of the Year. I just don't believe it. I just don't think that that's true. First of all, did it even really come out this year? It released last year, then unreleased and then released again this year. So is it a 2024 release or 23? They didn't add any subtitle to it. It's technically marketed the same as the same game. They just took like a 6-7 month hibernation and then came back and made the physics worse. But all of this, right, pitter-pattering about multiverses' inclusion is really dancing around the big issue, which is that Under Night 2 is not on this list. What the fuck? You're telling me you put a collection? Okay, fine. I'll give you multiverses. Fine. You put a collection of old games on before the actual new fighting game that released this year? That's like, okay, does Under Night have the biggest fan base? Not really, but like, okay, let's look at some of the other titles, right? Action adventure. Most of these are like brand names, except for Astrobot. Actually, Astrobot is an existing genre franchise, you know? Like, I'm trying to think of something that has like there have to be Stellar Blade. I don't know. Like Stellar Blade is nominated for Best Action. New game, new IP, new name, might not have the biggest audience in the world, might be slightly niche, I don't know. Maybe I'm talking out of my ass. But you're going to nominate that? You're not going to nominate Under Night? Like, fuck it, I'll give you multiverses, but like, I don't think you need to nominate the, like, okay, let's say the Capcom Fighting Collection wins. Okay, what? Who feels good about that? Even Capcom? Like, no one at the company made those games. No one made those games. What are they proud of? Like, yeah, we put a bunch of other people, old devs' games into a collection. Woohoo. Like, I don't even think they're excited about that. Replace it with Under Night. What the hell? That's crazy. In the anime fighter scene, that's like kind of a much bigger deal. What the fuck? Total snub. Ridiculous. I'll even give you Sparking Zero. You know, you put Grand Blue Fantasy on there. You're not going to... Oh my God. Ridiculous. Like, actually stupid. And then finally, I want to talk about the dumbest category, most anticipated game. Death Stranding 2, Ghost of Yotei, Grand Theft Auto 6, Metroid Prime 4, and Monster Hunter Wilds. This is so dumb because it's like... I think for a while, I've called it like the game ads, the game advertisements, and not the game awards, because the show is like 60% ads. But it is really like, wow, you're not even trying to hide the fact that this is just a marketing thing. Like, is it not like a slight conflict of interest that Death Stranding 2 is nominated for most anticipated game, and Jeff Keighley is like best friends / lovers with Hideo Kojima? Is it not like, you know, a little like, come on, dude? This is just the advertising. Could you imagine if the Oscars did that? Most anticipated film. Dr. Doom with Robert Downey Dr. Downey Jr. Just dumb. Just silly. And then finally, I'm done talking about the Game Awards. I will probably stream it, but expect it to go like every other stream. The Vampire Survivors DLC, the thing that I have been dumping my life into. So generally, what happens is that when the Vampire Survivors new DLC, whenever they put out a new DLC, I hunker down for like 2 or 3 days at most and just unlock everything and have a grand old time. You know when MMO players take time off of work so that they can just grind the new expansion? That's me with Vampire Survivors. That's my little ritual. The Vampire Survivors DLC has to this point been wonderful. I think they've all been really high quality, great value for the price. This game is so cheap. Every DLC is like $3 or $4. I thought that the last DLC, which was a Operation Guns, which was the Contra crossover with Konami. People made fun of the fact that it's a Konami crossover and it's not Castlevania. But I really liked Operation Guns. I thought the new characters were cool. I really liked the new weapons that they added. The new stage was great. Good time. And when you see that they're adding Castlevania characters, you're like, oh, this is sick. Cool. That makes so much sense. So a couple things. I guess this is going to contain spoilers for the Ode to Castlevania DLC, if that's something you care about, because there are plenty of secrets in here and like secret characters and stuff that I'm going to be talking about. So generally, I actually went and counted. Pretty much every DLC has added between 8 to 12 characters, something like that. 8 to 12 characters, usually new weapons for each of them. Occasionally there'll be, you'll have maybe 8 characters and a couple secret characters to unlock. Ode to Castlevania adds 8 new characters. It adds 80 new characters. I actually didn't do the counting. I wouldn't be surprised if it single-handedly or nearly doubles the size of the rest of the game up to that point. There are so many characters in this DLC. It blew me away. There are the initial characters that you see on the character select screen that you haven't been unlocked yet. Then you've got some of the hidden characters, is what they're called, which are characters that you have to do specific tasks in the, like, it doesn't tell you like that you're going to, you have to like either find them in the level or beat a specific boss or something like that. They're characters you have to do little special challenges to unlock. And then there are secret characters. Secret characters are characters who they only give you clues when you hover over them in the character select as to how to unlock them. They don't tell you in the unlocks menu, and you don't unlock them just by like, I would say like a normal, I don't know, unlocking stuff in Vampire Survivors can sometimes be a little bit abstract with like, you gotta unlock this, then unlock this. There's like a whole chain of things you have to unlock. Essentially, okay, I guess I have to talk about the map if I'm going to talk about the unlocks. I don't know if it's the biggest map they've added, but it is probably the most detailed one. The new map, the new stage, Castlevania, or I think it might be called Ode to Castlevania, is outstanding. It is massive, and it has so many different areas. Like, you start out and genuinely just the section outside of the castle could be like basically half of a regular stage. Like, it is so big, and there's enough things around. There's like 2 bosses in there. It could be like half of a regular stage. And then you go into the castle, and there are 30 different bosses to fight that you spawn by walking over these specific little sigils on the ground at different locations. There are so many little areas. It is so big that there are teleporters. There's literally like Symphony of the Night styled teleporters around the castle to help you go from to help you get around it, because genuinely I don't think that there is a way to see the entire stage in one run and actually survive. Like, if you were to do that, you would literally have no time to farm levels at all. It is that massive, and you unlock the teleporters by defeating certain bosses and venturing deeper and deeper and deeper into the castle. So you do this whole all this stuff, working your way through the castle up to like the clock tower, and then at the top it's like Castlevania, you ascend into Dracula's lair. And okay, I'm gonna spoil this, but it's so much fun. I have to talk about it. If you care about like genuinely really cool stuff in the game, then skip this if you haven't played it yet. The final character you unlock is Richter. That's just the way that the progression works. The final character you unlock is Richter. When you take Richter and go all the way up to the throne room, when you go up to the very tip top of the clock tower and everything, for any other character, there's like really nothing there. When you go there with Richter, there's this whole, it's the throne room. It's Dracula's throne room. That's in all the games, you know, famous for being the opening of Symphony of the Night. You go up to Dracula, and there's some really fun stuff in this DLC where they turn the game 2D. They give you 2D movement where you're all of a sudden, instead of like being on an overhead view, your character is walking along like the bottom of whatever surface you're on. It's kind of neat, and you can like jump and stuff without ever having to actually change the perspective. There is like some funky, you know, they changed the look of the perspective the background is drawn from, but that's it. So you go into the throne room and they reenact the opening of Symphony of the Night. And it's actually Richter. It's fully voice acted. It's like the first voice acting in the game. Richter, they have like the UI, like it's literally a recreation of the famous opening. And it's actually Pro ZD doing the voice of Richter, which is really funny. And they do the die, monster, you don't belong in this world. They're doing the whole thing. It's great. You fight Dracula, and then there's like this whole scene after you beat Dracula where Death shows up, and then you have to fight Death, and it's like this gigantic scene where like as you're fighting Death, all the other Castlevania characters that you've unlocked spawn in, and you're all fighting them together, and the music is going crazy, and they're doing all this stuff with like the sort of Vampire Survivors, the very loose lore of the game is like, there's this, I don't know, this weird like hand thing. It's like this golden hand called the Director. And the Director is like helping you out and like keeping you from dying. And it's so fucking cool. It is so much fun. I was smiling so much during it. It was really sick. And then you beat Death, and then you get this great credit sequence, and after the credit sequence, all of a sudden, boom! It pops back into like a cutscene, and there's brand new music. It's all pumping, and then just tons and tons of characters running by that you haven't seen yet. And it's like, actually, dude, there aren't, because it always starts with there's like 20 characters. You know, there's like 40 additional characters to unlock. And it's like, holy shit, all these guys are playable. And then you get to, I guess, like the last part of the DLC, which is unlocking all of the secret characters. Or hidden characters. I forget how I forget the terminology. They're kind of similes. No, not similes. They're kind of synonyms for each other. Secret and hidden. That's what I'm like for. They're synonyms. They're synonyms for each other. And get this. Once you do that, there's another gigantic part of the map. There's like 4 more areas that get unlocked and like 10, 15 more bosses. It is insane. It is so much to go through. It's like the underground part of the castle through the caverns and the sewers and all that. It's so good. It is in terms of the content. Okay. So first of all, the stage is immaculate. It is so much effort. It's so cool. There's tons of little references and little secret areas and stuff. The variety in locations is just awesome. The new weapons that are added are great. I started to run into, there's a weird problem. It's not really a problem because you can control it. That's weird. Is my throat dry? That threw me off. So every time they release a new DLC, they add a bunch of new weapons. Now, if you don't know, the way Vampire Survivors works is that you have weapons and you have like passive items. So once you max out the level on a weapon, you can evolve it into a stronger form, like a super form of the weapon. But you need some kind of, there's always a prerequisite of another item that you need to be holding. So the whip is like the first weapon you start with. Once you max out the whip, if you are holding the hollow heart, which is an item that just gives you more max health, you can then go to a chest, and the chest will give you the evolution for the whip, which is like this much stronger. It like steals health, does way more damage. That's how it works. They always add new weapons. They rarely, if ever, add new items. I'm actually gonna look. Excuse me. I'm actually gonna. I don't think like. I don't know if they've added a single new passive item, because I kind of get the idea, you know? The idea is that, well, if there are too many items in the pool of upgrades, because you always get random selections, it would become too hard to consistently be able to evolve things. So you can maybe pick up an item first and then pick a corresponding weapon that either synergizes with it or evolves with it. And yeah, I can't even find like I'm on the wiki. So I get that, but you kind of now run into this other problem where, yeah, hang on. Okay. I'm looking at the list of items. These are all base game items, at least that were, that were, let's say, released into the 1.0 version of the game. This DLC adds 2 new passives, although they are only available, I think, on this stage and potentially out of, there's like an item that you can get that just lets you pick any passive item off of that you've unlocked. The Tides of Foscari, the second DLC, added 1 item. The Emergency Meeting, which is the Among Us DLC, added actually quite a few, but I think they're also only available on certain characters. The Operation Guns added 1, which is a generic. I don't even think it doesn't actually occupy a slot. It's just called the weapon upgrade. Yeah, so you end up with this kind of situation where the number of weapons in the game vastly outnumbers the number of items in the game. So when you're actually trying to put together a build and work with what you're given, I just keep getting weapons, and I would really rather be getting items. Maybe they could adjust the numbers a little bit on how often items are recommended to you or are given to you, but like the it leads to, so the problem is that if all you do is invest in weapons, that's really not very you need items. The items are basically what let you capitalize on, because the items all increase your stats, different stats, and the weapons scale with different stats. So leveling up the weapons definitely makes them stronger, but it's that like half strength if it doesn't have items that really synergize with what the weapon is good at. So there's too many weapons almost. Thankfully, it genuinely becomes hard to build. It became hard to build because I just couldn't get anything consistently like solid going with the items that I was not being given. Thankfully, there is a whole system to alleviate this, which is that you can just straight up take like anything out of the upgrade pool. They're just called banishments seals. You can seal and banish. So sealing is outside of a run. You can just go to your unlocks and literally just click down the list of what ones you don't want to show up. You can even mass seal an entire DLC on the side. You can just check a box. Don't give me anything from this, Don't give me anything from from the Among Us DLC or something like that. So that helps. That's definitely helpful, and it helps alleviate this sort of natural problem that arises of there's just in a game where the upgrades are given to you randomly. There is if you have a weapon, you are more likely to get an item that will evolve it. And vice versa. That is definitely a thing. It's a noticeable statistical bonus. And also anything that you've already bought will also be given to you more often as options. But in general, it's like, it's just a roll of the dice, a roll of the slot machine. And it creates this kind of funky problem where it's I have to start. This is the first time in a DLC I felt the need to start sealing things away just because it was getting very difficult to manage an actual build. But that's kind of a suffering from success sort of problem. I have not unlocked all of the secret characters yet. Some of them have kind of terrible unlock requirements that are really annoying to do. Some of them are fine, but in general, there's just a lot. Like, they are very specific, and they basically only give you riddles to figure it out. So it's like, yeah, I'm going to the wiki and just looking up what to do. And to me, that's part of the fun. Vampire Survivors is a very it's a lot about discovery, and the communal aspect of the game is one of the most fun parts of following it, because people just have to figure stuff out when new things get added. People just have to figure it out. Yeah, I would say the ode to Castlevania is having this is the only game I've ever 100%ed. Well, sorry, it's not the only game, but it is the only one that I 100% every single time a new update comes out. Knowing the ins and outs of this game, I would say that this is the best DLC, hands down. I don't even think there's a question in terms of the sheer content, in terms of the quality of the content. I didn't even talk about the weapons. The weapons are really fun. Some of them I'm not super into. Some of them it varies. So there's a ton of new whips, obviously. Some of the whips are meh. Some of them are fun. There's a whole series of new spell books, and the spell books are kind of weird because they feel kind of awkward to use until you run them with the Gemini Arcana, in which case they get really good and way more fun. Essentially all of the spell books, they create these little seals and they'll cast some kind of spell out of the seal, and they all have different, some of them fire just in front of you, some of them fire in this kind of pattern around you, some of them will lock onto enemies, some of them will rotate around the screen as you move and shoot inwards, and they all fire on countdowns or on cooldowns. So they feel, when I say they feel kind of awkward, it's just sort of hard to hit a lot of stuff with them until you get the Gemini Arcana. So if anyone wasn't keeping up with Arcanas have been around in the game for a while. Arcanas are these bonus effects that you can choose from. You can have by default up to 3, although there are means by which you can have many more. You can there's so many ways to like break the rules of the game essentially that it supports. The idea is that arcanas are like these cards that follow, you know, like the tarot arcana, and each one of them has a funky, new, like different effect that can complement a different kind of playstyle or build. So one of them is Gemini. Gemini gives what they call companions to a select number of weapons. So, which is essentially weapons that are maybe a little bit linear. They get like a secondary like add-on to that. So in the case of the spell books, I mentioned how it'll create like a little seal, and that's where the spell fires from. When you get Gemini, you also get another seal on the opposite side of you. So Ice Fang might be my favorite one. It just generates these like ice spikes in front of you that hit multiple times, and they kind of like crunch. It fires like 2 rows of them, like pointing upwards and pointing downwards, and then they like crunch in on the enemies. That just shoots in one direction by default, but you can have them firing on both sides if you get Gemini. And so all the spell books are affected by that, and oh my god, they get way better. They're really fun to use. There's some fun like new projectile thing. The projectile weapons are really fun in the DLC. I like the bouncing, the hooks. I like the cannonballs, or the iron balls, sorry. They always cause like this massive screen shake whenever they drop. The Dracula's weapon is a glass of wine that he throws because meme. It's funny. I thought it was cute. It's so clearly made. There's so many characters I've never heard of. There's references to just about every single Castlevania game that's ever been made, except Lords of Shadow. There are tons of like little, like you can play as like the Flea Man. You can play as like the Skeleton Archers. You can play as like the Shopkeeper or something like that. Like there's like a shopkeeper, what is he, the Master Librarian or something? There are so many characters that are just like deep pulls or weird things that you would never expect, but that are so much fun to have around. But yes, in general, I find the weapons to be very fun. I like building around them a lot, and they have some cool evolutions. This is definitely the best DLC that they've ever done. And to be honest, I don't even care if they never top it, because I think it's worth creating something this good. I think it's worth it. It definitely took a lot of work. This is a lot of work put into this. That's probably why it took so long. And again, the value for this is absolutely ridiculous. Let me look up actually how much this costs. So, okay. So, first of all, it's a $4 DLC. That's crazy. So first of all, the base game is... Show me the base game. The base game is $5. The first DLC is $2. The second DLC is $2. The Among Us and Contra DLCs are both $2.50. This one is $4. Do they sell like a complete package? Vampire Survivors game plus all DLC plus OST. That is in total... Oh, okay. Well, I already own them, so it's like not telling me. It's not telling me what the actual cost of the full thing is. The only thing I don't own is the soundtrack. That's so funny. Vampire Survivors. Let me go to the Steam store. This is just turning into me selling you Vampire Survivors again. Oh no, I'm logged in on the Steam store. Well, if I just do the basic math, it's like 5 plus 3, or sorry, 5 plus 2 plus 2 plus 250 plus 250. So for a whopping $14, you can get what I have pulled. What am I sitting at? 264.8 hours. 265 hours. Absolutely absurd amount of content. Yeah, I would absolutely recommend it. It is one. If you were going to get any DLC for the game, if you just own the base game and you want to get any DLC, this is the one. It's so cheap. Do they even do regional pricing? Because the game is so cheap already. Like, it doesn't even matter. I feel like. I've said it before, but like the base game, they could have sold that thing for $10, and I think it would have been worth it. But instead, it is just mad cheap. I love Vampire Survivors so much. Yeah, so go check it out. Man, this was a good episode to get off my chest. It's fun to just kind of sit and talk for a while. But with that, I think I'm going to bring this to a close because it's been 2 hours and 20 minutes. Good Lord. If you've been watching this far, thank you so much for listening to me ramble. If you have a question, please leave it down in the comments. Please feel free to leave it down in the comments below. But phrase it in the form of a question because I'm not just going to read your thoughts out loud. Excuse me. I would like to get back to weekly uploads. Again, with this, I don't want to get into the situation where I took like a 3-week break because I feel bad. I feel bad, like personally, just not doing things in like a creative sense. Like it bums me out to not be making stuff. I've had more than enough vacation time, and I'm actually already quite a ways into the next video, which should be out hopefully before the end of the month. God damn me. It should be a lighter video, should be a little more fun. I would say, for a little teaser, if you like my video on Geek Love, this might hit some of the same notes for you. Thank you very much. Check out my Patreon and my Coffee and my main channel and everything else that I'm doing. Goodbye.